Today we're going to showcase a method of super buffing that you've never seen before, because this is a mod where you can singly target a tower to gain a specific buff from the shop. And let me just say, it's pretty awesome. Doom Bubbles has created buffs in shop, adds 20 plus of the game's buffs as entries in the shop that can be purchased to permanently apply them to a tower. So you can see on the right side there are now towers with a red background that all are basically purchasable buffs in the shop that for the most part are cheaper than the towers themselves that give the buffs. So we're gonna see just how much this changes vanilla gameplay in this Chimps run here. So the challenge, find a tower, pick a tower to super buff from the shop, and then see how long I can survive with it. We're picking balance because I think I found, or I have a good idea for a tower that will receive buffs very well. And that's the tack into attack zone. We're also bringing Pat Fusty along for the ride because, as you see, not every buff is in the shop. Hero buffs are missing. So that's how we're going to get even more buffs on a single tower. And what's great about this mod is that, again, because the prices are a lot cheaper than normal, it's actually reasonable to go for said buffs now because you don't have to spend 500k, say, on a True Sun God to get this buff. It's only 54k for a True Sun God's Blessing. Like, for example, I would normally have to spend $3,000 to $4,000 on a Raider Scanner if I wanted to get perma camo protection on the attack. However, in the shop, it now only costs $10.80 because you don't have the entire village yourself. So that is value and saves a lot of money. One thing that I do see is gravely needed in this shop is a lack of a discount. Could have saved like $100 here on some of these tack upgrades, but it is what it is. Next up is lead popping, and for that we will need an alch buff. However, alch buffs work differently in this shop. As you see, they're actually a lot more expensive than normal alchemist, and that's because they're basically permanent versions of the alch. So think of it as this Acidic Mission Dip as a $4,000 perma AMD. Same with Berserker Brew, 7k for a perma version of this, and 15k for Stronger Stim perma, which is so much cheaper than a normal perma that it almost seems like broken. And also, it seems like I'm not going to make 3.7k. That's okay. We've got Pat Fusty. In the meantime, we can give a primary training for only 430. However, I was going to say however because in some of these buffs here, you have to buy a subsequent upgrade first before being able to apply. Like, for example, you can't give a True Sun God buff before buying a normal temple buff. It will tell you to apply the previous one first, but thankfully, none of that matters. I thought I would have to buy Jungle Drums before buying it first, but no. We can skip getting the 10% range because I guess, honestly, it's not really worth 650 for the time being. We'll get a lot of range buffs from the other buffs anyway. Not to mention, Desperado is a perma buff. For only 1755, I might want to do that now, honestly, but nah. Let's go AMD first. We actually have to buy AMD before, like, the tier 3. So that was one example of having, like, prerequisites, although you just have to trust me on that. You might also notice that after buying some of the buffs from the shop, the prices of them are a lot cheaper. This training is only $215 now instead of what was $430, and that's because I think this mod is coded so that after you give one buff on a tower, the rest are half price for the most part. I'm not sure why, probably just for balance reasons. Say if I was not doing a one tower buffing only challenge, then getting a second buff, I guess half price makes more sense because, like, some of these buffs are global, like Homeland Defense. Spending 43k to double the damage or attack speed and pierce of one tower is kind of inefficient if you have a map of weak towers that you're trying to buff. So I guess the general rule of thumb is that these upgrades are normally better and cheaper, but if you have multiple towers, then you might need to think differently about those AoE buffs. Anyways, perma AMD and perma +1 pierce on that attack has allowed us to save for attack zone easily. So now the fun begins, because now that I spent like the most I needed to my tower, the rest can be on these buffs here. Shall we begin? 63 might be a bit of an issue, so let's get Pierce. The Abyss Dwelling is only 10%. Let's get Primary Mentoring, and then Primary Expertise. And that's a +3 Pierce, I believe, on all attacks. And now this group round shouldn't be an issue. Now, it seems like there's no better version of the Mermonkey in the shop, so I might actually spend more money, if I have extra money, on the better one, like the tier 5 that gives 40%, because that's way bigger than 10% quick maths. Now, I'm saving all this money just to test if there's any prerequisite for overclocks. For Ultra Boost, there's not. Wow, okay, so that's great. I can skip the Ultra Boost or the overclock entirely, which saves a lot of money in the process. So, what Ultra Boost does is, how it works is that it gives you 1 stack every single round. So you see it has 2 UB stacks right now, and oh crap, we died. Okay, let's see if that was a mistake or not. I still have 4K to work with. I guess I ought to get some take better aim then, right? How big is the pierce now? Or the range? Should reach a little bit further, but I think all I needed really was to use pad ability. And there we go. +3 is so much better than I think any of the buffs we have right now. Carry on, and also I'm mistaken. I still need to get the normal overclock and the Ultra Boost because, as you see, Ultra Boost is only the, like, the perma stack version, not the passive version. Passive as in, like, the whole buff. So what's kind of funny to think about is that I think, like, this is a way more expensive overclock. It was 100% worth it. More efficient to go for an overclock first. Because right now, this 5-stack Ultra Boost is only giving me, like, 35% attack speed as opposed to 67. Yes, 67 with overclock. Now, if you don't mind me going to a tangent, this might be the first time that I've ever felt truly out of touch. Because usually the, you know, the memes of the month, the memes of the year, I get it, but this one I truly have no idea why it's so funny or even meme worthy. I mean, it's a literal number. Anyway, let's get Perma Berserker Brew now, and let's get Stronger Stimulant along with it. So this should replace it, right? Yes, indeed. So now we got Perma Brew, Ultra Boost, Primary Expertise on this tower, which I don't think we could have afforded all those, right, in this game? I'm just doing the math, and I think the Ultra Boost is just simply too expensive for that. Again, we're only just getting started here. Here's how quickly round 98 falls. And the BD. Currently looking at about 1k DPS, but I want to see it on top. See it on top for a whopping, I think, 4,000, and that bat dies in seconds. That's why I picked a tower that was good single target, because that is pretty much the roadblock for what will survive the longest. Now I've got a decision to make. Which of these buffs is best worth it next? I can probably save 50k for the Sun Temple. I think it's worth it. I believe the Sun Temple gives 20% attack speed, but more importantly, plus like 2 damage, which is probably better than a perma 50% attack speed or perma 100. Actually, I don't know. 100 is kind of a lot to pass up on, but let's go for the Temple first, because this is like something that's not natural to get. Alright, one more round. I actually died on 107, I think, because I didn't use pad ability, so that means Pierce was an issue. Now, here comes the Sun Temple. Actually, before that, let me show you. Yep, must have Sun Temple Blessing buff. And now, there it is. A max, I think this is max, the max support sacrifice. Judging by how much faster those ZMGs died. Absolutely. Now, let's gun for the TSG. And what should be noted is I think there is a version on this mod or a setting where you can apply buffs that you normally cannot apply on a tower. So for example, elite snipers in the shop, obviously you can only use that if it's a sniper monkey. But maybe if we reach the end, we can tick on that option so that we can apply said buff to the texture, which is obviously dumb and makes no sense. But for the funny, we can just see how many, like how far that can get. Like just think of it as Rogue Legends. Every monkey or tower counts as every other tower, which isn't a thing in Rogue Legends because it only does classes, but still, if you think about it like that, or if you simulate that, then I think that sounds like a reasonable thing that could be in the game eventually. Alright, triple bad time. I could get a Homeland now if I wanted to, but I'm so close to the TSG, I'd rather just get the most expensive first. So, how much faster does it die? Pretty much at the same spot, I think, as around 100. So that's good news. And now, even stronger attacks. Here comes the true Sun God. And with that, now we get a +4 damage from both temple buffs. And now, I think in this shop, we're only just missing attack speed, right? Yeah, the only buffs that can be applied to attack is just the Call to Arms and the Homeland. Now, I think there is a prerequisite that you have to buy a mid for it, which we don't really need, do we? Because the AMD already gives slide popping. It'd only be if we had a frozen balloon on screen, but I'm not gonna drop an ice tower, at least until, I guess, Super Brittle. Yeah, in the shop, there are no debuffs. So I guess after we buy out the whole shop, we can now add debuffs to, again, push the tack zone to its limits even further. Unlucky. I think I'm gonna be just short of a homeland defense. Wow. 200 bucks. The reason why I'm holding off for Called Arms is just to see if that is a prerequisite, because I'm not sure. Single target you can truly see here with pad ability is it's skyrocketing past 10k per second, but is 10k per second going to be enough? Because that bad looped around a lot of times, but it is awesome. And let's see. Nope. Must have Called Arms buff, so we'll do that first. And now, that makes the attacks even thicker with a perma 50% pierce, perma 50% attack speed. So much better, or so much worth it on a single target, because, of course, Called Arms is like usually 1/3 uptime, and not 100. Are you down with the thickness? Let's get even more thickness with the final buff in the shop, the Homeland Defense. And, yep, again, that's it. From here on out, we're gonna probably add debuffs. And then once we reach the end of the line with Tackstone plus debuffs, we'll probably enable the setting so we can apply every buff in the shop to that tower. How does that sound? Now, I suppose this is also fair game, but I guess with the debuffs, I can also apply buffs from the shop to it. Like, for example, I don't like the small range of this embrittlement, so how about we give Take Better Aim, so it can apply the debuff in a wider range. I guess we could also do primary training for a tiny bit of range. It's only 200 bucks. I think it's definitely worth it. P mentoring too. I'll be providing periodic updates from here on out, but now that we got Super Brittle, I suppose next up is a Cripple Moab Bads. Still, not even a one full loop before getting popped. We'll give it a bit more range, primary expertise, and that is probably it for the ice. Round 176 update. Here's our Cripple Moab, and let's give some attack speed buffs to it so that its debuff is a little bit more reliable. Probably spend the extra 14k on Overclock too, just to make damn sure. Also, I guess I didn't realize you could skip the AMD on the on the out buffs, which I'll do. So, Berserker Brew for a tiny, I think, 10% attack speed buff. I think before we get any further buffs on the sniper though, let's finish it off at least with a Glue Storm. I'll do Top Path because, remember, I think I can do primary expertise buffs on it, so that reduces the cooldown of Glue Storm by 25%, which... And Energizer too, right, Energizer. Or actually Energize. So how these two buffs work is that, apparently this is a modified version. You only need this version to reduce by 20%. This is only for water towers. In other words, really good for me, because now I don't have to spend like $30,000 on just 20% CDR. Just 4k and another 3k and we're good. Okay, hold up. Round 183 update. I actually died multiple times this round. I think it was to DDTs, so let's make sure to use pad ability and Glue Strike now. But not having Glue Storm sucks, because I can't reapply. I'm literally just 1k away, but I might die here. Hold the fort. Hold. Here come more FDTs, but I don't have any abilities up. There's Glue Storm now, but I might be too late. Nope, we did it this time. Good, but it seems like we're close. Not to DDTs dying. It was really just, again, I think sneaky DTs that got through us. Initially, I thought 200 was going to be easy, but it seems like it's not going to be as trivial as I thought. Because after this, I really can't add anything more in terms of damage. We are capped. Actually, hold up, one more thing. I forgot that, right, you can stack Embrittlement and Super Brittle for another +1, but that's it. After this, we are donezo. Okay, not fully donezo. Remember, I still can apply overclock buffs to this thing, but those benefits are very minimal. We'll again give some range buffs on this guy so it can reach a little bit further. Speaking of range, hold on. I completely forgot to give the original Monkey Village buff to the tack. That was one I was missing. Not that, like, again, 10% range really matters, because it was really attacking all the time anyway. The tacks are hardly reaching further than before, but, duh. I guess because of that, I can give that to the two Ice Monkeys here too, for a little bit of help. And now we're done. So close to round 200, but it looks like 194. has killed us. I can't tell if it was because of Pierce issues, but it seemed like some of the attacks weren't reaching. Which means, yes, I think it could utilize some more Pierce. So let's get that Mermonkey I was talking about earlier. Now, I couldn't find a spot where it reaches, so I have to give a bunch of, I think, Echo Sense stacks. 6 of them look like it reaches, right? Or 7, yeah. Let's see if 10% helps now, or if it was really just a damage issue. You can tell by if the attacks that normally reach all the way out are disappearing, and they are disappearing. I can't believe even with Homeland that gives double Pierce, that is still happening. And a expertise end, but it seems like it's not enough. So that's a shame, I guess. There was nothing more I could add. Somehow we got Pierce capped and died to 194. So now we're gonna bypass tower restrictions. And now this shouldn't even be close, because check this out. Carrier flagship for a 17-18% buff. Sub-commander for, I think, +1 damage and Pierce. How about Absolute Zero for, I believe, 50% attack speed? We're out of money, but very shortly, I can also add an Elite Sniper for 33% attack speed. And check this out now, guys. I also did realize or notice that when you retry around, the Ultra stacks go back down to 9, so that might have hurt me from being able to survive, because when I retried last round, it was technically worse. But as you see, with those 3 extra buffs, easy peasy. Now, it's weird is that I wanted to try to apply Harmonizer, but it didn't work, which is weird because it's supposed to bypass all restrictions, but oh well. Now, just out of curiosity, testing a tower is not in the buff shop, but if it counts as every category, does that mean, say, a Shinobi stack will increase? No, it doesn't work on the tack. I guess it's just those 4 other buffs then, which honestly, I'm surprised there wasn't more of them, because this only, I say only, gives double the attack speed. So it may not survive as long as you think, even though we have so many more buffs that are illegal. But again, if we could add Brickle, multiple heroes to the shop, and say Paragon buffs like, say, the Boom Paragon, which isn't here, then that would be more reasonable for way more damage. Anyway, here's round 200. How much single target at one time? Well, I'm looking at it, and it looks like 100,000. Not bad for 20 buffs, huh? I don't think we're long with this world, though. We probably only have a few more rounds after this. I also just realized that somehow you can change the targeting of the sniper, I guess because of elite targeting. Now it's either close or elite. Never mind, this is still a lot more rounds than I actually thought. Surely not much longer, though, right? That FBAD is pretty much about to exit. Yep, those GTs. Somehow we clutched it, though. Not the mobs, though, so I guess that finally will do it. Again, it was fun to be able to use buffs that you normally cannot afford in modes like Chimps, so thank you, Doom Bubbles, for the fun session. For more videos, click here. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time.